Hello, everybody. It's been a while. I've been trying to set this up with Ben for a little while, but we're going to talk about Grey Knights now, the state of the game right now, where they sit. Ben is he's been playing a very long time. He loves his Grey Knights. He's been tinkering with them since 10th hit. He just last month, so pre-data or pre-points drop, he actually took them to an RTT and won the whole thing with them. So we're going to talk about his new list, how he wants to play it, how he feels they're doing now, why they're, maybe not winning tons of events. But Ben, go ahead, take it away. It's been a while since you've been on the show. So what are you up to,
Yeah.
dude?
Yeah, well, Grey Knights are obviously one of my favorite factions to play. One, because I like their lore, they're pretty fun. And on the side note that, they're just kind of like my yin to my yang. I played a lot of Templars too, so having no psychers and then going to all psychers but still Marines is kind of a lot of fun. But yeah, so Grey Knights in 10th edition just intrigued me so well because of the teleport strike. It's just it feels like Marines but Eldar. So, and
Yeah.
if you guys didn't know, Eldar is my other, like, we'll call it my main chick. So those are my major three: Templar, Eldar, and Grey Knights. And it was just so exciting to see them have that teleport strike. I was really anticipating them coming into 10th edition. And then when their points dropped, I was like, oh, that hurts. Just a little bit too few resources, but
Yeah.
I still decided to take them to the RTT because I was like, they've got some guff to them. There's definitely some things that they can do well. Let's see if we can accentuate that. And the biggest thing is that they don't have a ton of heavy shooting, right? They just don't
Yeah.
have a lot of AP. And in an addition where cover is everywhere, my first eyes went to the incinerator, right? Because the incinerator ignores
Yeah.
cover, is strength 6, and especially at the time, Eldar were reigning supreme, those T3 little buggers running around, this thing wounds them on 2s, ignores cover, it's -1.
Hmm.
I like that. And then I looked at the Brotherhood Librarian, and I was like, this is their only source of damage that I can see. This thing, while 16.6% chance to fail, whatever, this thing can actually do some decent
Yeah.
damage. So I started tinkering around with it, and then I ended up doing a lot of Terminators because I really like the apothecaries in the squads. Getting free dudes back is huge, and if you
Yeah.
play them right, you can take casualties and still be hidden. Well, that depends on how aggro you're going with Libbies or whatever. And then they res, and the GW even made it so that you can res them in Deep Strike or when they get pulled up for Teleport Strike,
Yeah.
which is huge.
Huge.
So having those in mind, at the RTT, I took like 4 Terminator squads and then like 2 strikes and a Rhino. I didn't. Now with the different points, it's different lists, which I'll go over. But like at the RTT, I played some pretty top tier armies. I played against Thousand Suns, which were
Well, you
beyond ridiculously good at the time.
yeah, and you
Uh,
I think you messaged me after that RTT like right away, and you told me that your Libbies went like absolutely ape shit on
yeah, so
uh
he pulled Magnus out and killed a
Magnus.
couple of Terminators, and then Magnus died to 2 vortexes. I did like 19 wounds of vortexes to him that turn. I rolled a 6 and a 5 and then an 8 on the vortexes with 2 6s, and he was very sad. Very sad. But the thing that was surprising me about the Grey Knights is that their mobility when not teleport striking. The teleport striking is a given, but the auto advance 6 was huge all game, especially with the scouting with the strikes.
Yeah.
Having the strikes scout was this is essentially why I dropped the Rhino, because I liked the Rhino and it gave, the 2 strike squads starting in the Rhino gave it scout so I could get into a better position, but I just found I just didn't need that with the strikes having a 2+ now. So strikes are definitely, feeling it. And second round I played Chaos Knights with a million War Dogs, and the only reason I was able to win that game is because the vortexes were just great. And getting into combat with the knights, they don't have a ton of swings, so having the 4-up invuln so that, like 5 swings, you get like 4 hits, 4 wounds, still only killing 2 Terminators. So it's going to take them 3 turns to get through a squad, 3 combats. And I'm doing damage to them back or vortexing them because it doesn't say I don't have to be in combat.
That's right.
Uh,
Not
so
like not like Voldis's little thing which says that they must be in engagement range.
Yeah, you're right, correct. So, as my list has evolved, I used to have the exaction squads because they were cheap and they were just tough. And I've actually moved away completely from using anything else. And the biggest thing that I've been taking lately is this paladin brick of 10. And the reason I've been doing that is because it's their only source of reliable ranged damage, even though it's only AP1. But the side cannons on the paladin squads hitting on twos is, since they have no source of rerolls, is their
Right.
only consistent
Yeah.
shooting. And with the 3-inch drop and Missa Demos, which if you guys don't know what that is, why are you listening to a Grey Knight thing? Missa Demos is the best stratagem for Grey Knights.
Yeah.
Basically, they move within 9, and if you have the Deep Strike keyword, you can be pulled off the board. The other caveat is that you can move, um, I think, D6 inches. It might even be just flat
It's
6, but
it's flat 6 actually. Yeah,
I must be thinking of Squad Tactics and Space Marines. They're all so similar, but all different. But
yeah.
anyway, I've used that both ways, but the big one is pulling that big 10 man off the board when they get moved nearby, and then I can use my teleport strike on 3 different units. So basically, I'm morphing almost my whole army every turn, except for the stuff that's hiding. Now, I did recently drop one Terminator squad for a Grandmaster because he does have the
Ooh.
psychic ability. Yeah, a Grandmaster and a Dread Knight. Actually, I should
Oh, in
mention
a
that with.
Dread Knight.
Yes, because he has the Psychic Surge, so that he
Hmm.
can get full rerolls of hit and wound,
Yeah, in
and
monsters and vehicles, right?
specifically because in response to the new Nid Codex.
Oh, okay.
Without him, the Norn Emissary is insane to kill for the Grey Knights. You need him to be able to put down at least one of them because they have the 4-up Invul and the 5-up Feel No Pain, OC15. So your
Yeah.
little deep strike trick won't work nearly as effectively, which what I'm talking about is doing the 3-inch deep strike with the Terminators to come down and be
Yeah.
OC15 essentially yourself.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I took him, because that other squad of Terminators just basically won't kill a Norn either. So uh, what I'm doing now is I'm taking 3 Livies because I still think Livies are the way to go. I'm only taking one enhancement now. I used to take the sigil. I've taken that out. I just feel like if I'm exposing multiple units and needing the sigil, I'm probably going to lose that game anyway because stuff is getting shot or I'm just overexposing, and the points are so tight in Grey Knights, so tight that I just need everything that I possibly can get. So I've got 3 Libbies, the Grandmaster in the Dread Knight armor, Drago, because you have to go with Drago. He is the only source of AP4 in the Codex in combat,
He-
so you
he-
got to take him, and
he's
he's decent
also
damage.
he's also the I mean, you get +3 in your charge to out of deep strike. That's gnarly.
It is
That's like
gnarly, and I've failed
yeah.
that multiple times with a reroll. So
Yeah. But easier to get in on a 6 than a 9.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah.
And then I take 3 of the Terminator squads. One goes with Drago, 2 Libbies on that one. I actually put the Libby with first to the fray on the Paladins so that
Okay.
they can come in turn 1.
Okay.
And then I take 2 strike squads, and then all the special weapons except for the Paladins are incinerators because, like I said, I
Yeah.
love the
I
incinerator.
I
Strength
really
6
do too.
CP1.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super good. The only bummer is that they just don't do well in the GSC, which GSC have taken such a step back. That's not going to really be an issue. But the big one is like those big nids. Without that Grandmaster, I was struggling big time into
Mhm.
those big nids, especially stuff like side Heradules and barbed Heradules who have the 2-up save. The side cannons plinking it away at something that has a 2-up save into a 3-up. When I don't necessarily ignore cover, it can just stick its tail and get cover. It was just a bad time for them. So I needed something, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Man, the cover rules are just so I mean like I'm glad that they're more streamlined and they're easier to understand, but like at the same time, like you said, the fact that the edge of their tail is behind a building means the whole model gets cover. It's just kind of bizarre. I went to a GT and played Knights, and because there was like a crate between me and the big knight, and I couldn't see his shins, his whole knight got cover. It's like,
yeah, it's kind
okay,
of silly.
whatever. Yeah.
I remember back in the day when 25% of your model needed to be obscured for you to get cover. But the other side of that is What what's 25%?
Exactly. Yeah. How do you measure that? How do you measure it quickly? Get into an
Yeah.
argument, you know? Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, the Grey Knights in 10th edition are super good, especially because teleport strike makes them function. They heavily favor second turn, not because
Yes.
necessarily because the WTC ruled that you can't really do the up down on turn one. But that doesn't really matter because you have first to the fray, which ignores that anyway. If
Yeah.
they said first to the fray doesn't work, then the whole enhancement doesn't work. So
Yeah.
that's obviously is not a thing. But just their mobility throughout the game. The only issue that you could run into is like I said with the nids with having all those lictors everywhere. That's another problem I didn't mention. It's because they can screen you out pretty well, right? So
Yeah.
the 3-inch deep strike will come into play for a couple, but then you got the Norn emissary, and they have some decent shooting with the Zoes that are damaged enough to kill Terminators. But basically, the matchups revolve around how well can they kill Terminators because I'm running 25 of them.
Yeah.
So the Paladin brick is pretty hard to put down. I've had a lot of people try to Jurassic Park it. And what I mean by that is that their vision's based off movement. So if I don't move, they can't miss a Demos.
Oh, I got
And
Jurassic Park it. Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
um, and sometimes that works, and they're not the greatest because it's strength 6 AP2 with the loss of the hammers, which I know a lot of people will complain about, which I actually 100% agree with. Like, why a demon hammer isn't like a thunder hammer is beyond me. But they're just like, hey, it's a
Yeah.
force weapon
The,
now, strength 6.
I was playing my Grey Knights into my buddy Zach's Orcs yesterday, and I brought Voldus with the Paladin brick just to try out their -1 to be hit and -1 to be wounded, just to try that out. And Voldus got into combat, and I pull up his profile, and I'm like, oh yeah, hammer. Oh, doesn't even have devastating wounds. And then I'm like reading his little psychic ability. I'm like, I have a 50% chance to do D3 mortals in combat. So
Right, and
the chief librarian of the chapter of librarians, who is so powerful, he's like pulled a planet out of the warp, is less effective on the battlefield than a normal librarian. Like,
yep. I mean, it is what it is,
yeah.
man. I mean, rules writing is rules writing.
Yep.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Look at Eldar, 3 nerfs in, and
Doing
they're
fine.
still ridiculous. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still doing fine. But I would say the Grey Knights are sitting pretty well. I can definitely see why their win rate will suffer on the numbers, because to me they're a low ceiling or a low floor, high ceiling army. What that means is, relatively speaking, they're incredibly hard to pick up and play well.
Mm-hmm.
And to play at their maximum potential they're really hard to do.
Yeah.
So anybody out there like struggling with Grey Knights, you're not alone. They're really tough to play because they're high points per model. So that means that any mistakes that you made, you're going to feel a lot more than your other armies.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they're priced out for the teleport strike. So even with the Terminators are a certain amount of points, the strike squads are still super expensive because they got the 2-up. But
Yeah.
they still have true silver armor, which is AOC, which is huge because Terminators sitting uncovered love AOC. And the same with the Paladins. Mr. Demos is super strong, so it's all about board manipulation and playing that mission. They play tactical insane. I mean, I have trouble describing it to people, but people who have played with the Calidus Assassin, they're like, she's
Yeah.
insane. The Grey Knights get 3 essentially Calidus Assassins a turn. 4 if you count Mr. Demos, because it's going to happen. And I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, because I've said it like 5 times now.
Miss Demos, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's the way that's pronounced. I mean,
Okay.
Demos is it Latin or is it Greek?
I think it's Latin.
I think it's Latin. So we're probably not pronouncing it right anyway.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
It's probably like Diimos or something, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know what you mean. That's the most fun stratagem like in the game right now, I think, because it's just like
fun.
You can analysis paralysis your opponent with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And it's funny too because it doesn't even have a line of sight requirement, right? So like if they even move up,
it does.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Miss does not.
Right.
I'm in my head thinking about Vortex. Every
Yeah.
time I think about Grey Knights, I'm like, Vortex.
So miss, like, they can move up behind a wall to charge you or whatever, and if they come with a 9, you're out of there.
You're gone. Yep.
Boop.
And
It's
with
really
like
funny.
a pallet, the whole combo is with the paladin blob deep striking within 3 inches. I mean, that footprint of 9 inches is huge. So trying to get away from that, unless
Yeah.
you're not smart about it, which is goes back to the low floor.
Yeah.
Those paladins are just gone. And even if they aren't, they're pretty tough to crack. You've got I should say 5 storm bolters until you're into the actual meat of that squad, which is the side cannons.
Yeah.
The side cannons are on 1 on the banner and then 4 guys in the squad,
Yep.
which is hilarious to me that the paladin banner can take a side cannon, but the regular
The,
Terminator squads they can't. But
well, paladins also can't take an apothecary, even though it comes
which
in the
also
box.
is weird to me.
It comes in the box, right? And if the idea is you can run whatever's in the box, like, well, we can't run the
Yep.
apothecary, apparently.
Yeah, that cracks me up too.
Yeah.
No apothecaries for paladins.
I would,
How do you-
if apothecaries could go into the paladins, I think they would be, you'd have a 10 man in every single Grey Knight list. Because
Yeah,
they're so
absolutely.
expensive, and to bring that model back for free, 42 points or whatever, is just that would be incredible.
Yep. So I mean, kind of how I've been piloting the Grey Knights is just playing the tactical mission. Obviously misting
Okay.
whenever I can, but the big thing is keeping track of what my opponent's done and using the Grey Knight's power for denial, because I can score my secondaries without breaking a sweat. Essentially, with 3 units dropping in every turn, as long as I haven't lost units. Because losing
Right.
units, that's when
Yeah.
starts stuff to get tricky.
Yesterday, I was playing into orcs, and I joked, I'm like, I have 7 units, and because of the points drop, I have 7, not 6, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, that's weird, I have 21. Like, yay, orcs, right? Like,
Yep. And MSU can be kind of difficult for the Grey Knights to deal with just because they don't have a ton of damage. So, but they do have a ton of OC on the Terminators. But yeah, like I said, tracking what your opponent has left so that you can like deny investigate signals with your deep strikes, or like secure no man's land, sitting Terminators on objectives when normally you wouldn't, etc. Those are the kind of plays that are going to win games where you might lose without dealing
Interesting.
damage. So that's exactly how I approach using the Grey Knights, is how can I win this game without necessarily dealing damage?
Yeah.
The dealing damage portion is going to happen, maybe, because like I said, it's Vortex and then some bolter shots and then the Paladin side cannons.
It used to be in 9th, when before like everything gains some toughness, like you would fire the storm bolters and they'd do okay. Like into T4, I think there were a lot more things that were T4, so it felt better to shoot. But like storm bolters into Eldar feel amazing. Storm bolters into orcs feel terrible. Storm bolters
Absolutely
into
horrific.
knights are like, I'm not even gonna shoot this. I'm not even gonna waste the time rolling the dice because I'm wounding on 6s, So
Yeah.
But like there were more armies where the storm bolters felt okay. And now it's like, well, our only other real good choices are, I mean, the silencer is dog meat. It's terrible. But the side cannon's pretty cool, except, yeah, like you said, -1 AP is effectively 0 AP.
Mm-hmm.
Because like covers everywhere. And strength 8's not bad. But yeah, there are a lot of feel no pains, I feel, too.
It actually is kind of bad.
Strength,
as far as
strength 8.
strength 8, because if you look at it, a base chassis on a Rhino or whatever, or Impulsor, or Eldar Grav Tank is T9.
Yep.
So I think, I think the side cannon should be strength 9. At least give the basic transport being able to be wounded on force. And you can deal some damage to some of the medium infantry. You definitely hurt Marines some, but with like cover and AOC, if you're shooting Terminators, it's not worth it. You just have to get into
it. the amount in this game yesterday, I just shoved my Paladin brick right in the middle. because I wanted to see how tanky they could be. And I told my opponent that. He put in 2 10-man groups of knobs, a truck, and a bunch of the squig hog riders, and they didn't die. Like, I lost some to the truck with the like tank shock stratagem, and then otherwise, like, if you pop true silver armor, most of the orcs weapons are AP 1. Now they're AP 0. Yeah, and they're bouncing off 2-up saves. They're just,
and plus the paladins have the -1 to wound,
right,
if their strength is higher than your toughness.
And I had Voldus in there, so they were also -1 to hit, because I just wanted to see, like, does this work at all? And it did. It, like, he was so frustrated because I didn't get to miss very much because I was saving my CP for true silver armor. But, like, he was frustrated. He's like, how are you not dead yet? And I'm like, we're pretty good. This specific unit is pretty good. Yeah.
Well, I hope so, because that's like a 500-point unit with Voldus. 550.
Yeah, it's
something like that.
It's 545, I think. Because Voldus is only 95 points. Yeah. Like, Voldus is less expensive than a normal librarian by 5 points.
That makes me roll my eyes so bad.
Yeah. But that was really, really fun. I don't think I used them properly or well. I just wanted to see how much they could just absorb, and it is apparently quite a lot, unless mortal wounds start happening, or devastating wounds, and then they start dropping like flies, and without the apothecary. But to your earlier point about our melee, like, hitting boys is fine, hitting beast naga boys fine, whatever. Going into squig hog reddits, they're T7 and they have a 5-up feel no pain. It's like, why am I even swinging at you? Like, I'm wounding you on 5s. I have no rerolls of any kind. And then, like, you just have a 5-up feel no pain, which changes the math so much. The only it says make 2, and then it just ruins the rest of your combat phase.
Yeah, and that's like where Grey Knights are going to suffer, right? Because in my opinion, if they did do that well, where they can just delete everything off the board with close combat, then they might become a little busted. But we're a far cry from that, so don't quote me on that, because it's going to take a lot.
I was trying to think of ways that our melee could get buffed where it would be better without it being ridiculous, and like Hammerhead is lethal wounds on the charge. Something like that might help a lot. Where just like all of our weapons had that or something, had lance or whatever. That would help a
lance
bit.
Would be appropriate instead of I would almost like that more than lethal hits. Hammer hands is lance, because then it's only on the charge anyway. But then you're stuff into T12, you're not screwed. Like
right, exactly.
T12 is that break point where it's like, cool.
Yeah,
that's I'm not hurting this.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Where it's like, you see anything over because we don't have hammers, and even hammers wouldn't change T12 that much unless they were still free. But then you're like hitting on one less. Anyway, I don't know. I think lance on all the nemesis weapons would be good. I don't think we want to go into another AP arms race. Definitely don't think you put dev wounds on everything. That would be wild.
I think the stratagem is good enough, but I think it needs to come down to CP now with the
I think so too.
Devastating wounds.
Yeah.
I think it's a little pricey for what it does now. But like, think about an Avatar Arcane walking into a squad. Like, what do? It's half damage, T12. You wounded on 6s. Cool. What do I do here?
Yeah, you don't do anything.
Drago! Drago!
The only strength 8 weapon on the field.
Well, he's a demon. That's why I'm saying
Drago.
Oh,
got it. Okay. I did not know. Like, I've actually never seen one. I've never even seen the model, like, with my eyeballs. Yeah, I've seen artwork and stuff. Yeah. So
I have one sitting next to me, but it's in a box.
Nice.
I have too much stuff, but
I mean, it's almost like you've been playing this game a long, long time or something, right?
Weird, yeah.
Yeah.
But Grey Knights are around here somewhere.
So
I like them a lot, though.
I want to take a moment to remind everybody we live stream these so you can ask us questions, and there's been like no interaction from the the chat, which
Yeah, come on, guys.
people
Ask
are
some Grey
being
Knight questions.
they're being very polite in there and making jokes, but like there's no questions being asked. So please
Sure.
ask. Ben is an incredible player. He's piloted Grey Knights for a long time. So now's your time. Now's your chance. I'm just an idiot with a camera, so you can ignore whatever I say. But so let's see what else stood out in my game yesterday. Yeah, as soon as I started losing units, it felt awful.
Terrible,
Absolutely
right?
awful. Every single unit you lose, they're so expensive that it's just like going from 7 to 6 to, is just terrible.
Yeah.
It feels really
I,
bad.
I fought against the lion and I got into combat with him and I charged him. I forgot he had fight first. And he deleted almost a whole Terminator unit. And I was like,
I
oh,
didn't know he was that
that
good.
sucks.
Nice.
Well, he's a lot of damage. He fights first, and he's like 7 attacks. So if you don't roll decent on your saves, you could end up losing a good chunk of them. And I lost, I think, everything but the apothecary and the Libby. So I was a
Yeah.
little scared there after that, because that was on my turn. I charged him because I forgot about fights first. I was like, they're probably dead, you know.
Yeah.
But luckily he moved something, and it was like he wanted to fall back and charge, so he fell back, and I was like, well, we're gone. Whoop.
Yep. If you fall back at all, we're out of here. If you
Yep.
advance, we're out of here. If you normal
Yep.
move, we're out of here. Pizza Bagels is asking, what are your hopes for the codex?
My hopes is that they drop down the Grey Knight vehicles to the same price as the Space Marine ones now that they do the exact same thing.
Oh man. That's
And they get,
so
as an example,
the Storm Raven's like 10 points more expensive for Grey Knights than anyone else or something, right?
yep, and it doesn't have access to the tactical doctrines. It gets nothing from Teleport Strike.
Right.
So it's, respectively, it should be 10 points cheaper, if anything, not 10 points more.
Right.
It has true silver armor, but AOC is still on there. The biggest thing I want to see from the codex is I want to see the points equal out a little bit so that stuff like interceptors are playable again. It's not that I don't think they're not playable. It's just, why would you bother when you have a strike squad that can move 11 inches or 12 inches with an advanced roll? Because as an example, when are you going to need to move 18 inches with an OC1 model? To me, you're just throwing. If you have to do that, you're throwing them away. Because I would rather have an OC2 model that moves 6 inches less,
Mhm.
and they still have
And
two up
has sticky.
save. And sticky is the big thing. Yep.
Yeah. Sticky
I
is
know that they can fire and fade, quote unquote, but there is only. I'm not going to use the command point on an interceptor squad to go advance, shoot, and fire and fade. That their bolters aren't that good.
yeah,
Their incinerator. Yeah.
theoretically they can move um yeah, 24 inches or something.
24
but
inches on a 30-point Marine that is 2 wounds on a 2 up save with no invulnerable. It's a hard sell for me. So what I want to see is I want to see that come out and be playable, and then on top of that, I want to see some sort of source of rerolls. I don't even care if it's one, like Eldar, one reroll to hit or one reroll to wound. Just one per activation
just
for the Grey
something.
Knights. Something.
Something.
Or an increase in no, okay, here's one that really grinds my gears: is the Grandmaster in a baby cage. For whatever reason, his ballistic skill is worse than a Grandmaster on foot,
Yeah.
which makes no sense to
So's
me.
his weapon skill.
Yeah, right. So where's the disconnect? I got hop into the baby carrier, suddenly I don't hit so good. I don't get it.
Yeah. I
So I'd
don't
like
I
to
don't
see
either.
those. I'd like to see those kind of connect, and I would really, really like to see some sort of, like, if they're going to keep the points per model the way they are, something like the Custodes, like with Sisters of Silence, come up with some new unit for that in the Grey Knight Codex, so that you don't have to go reach out and grab Voidsman at arms. Because honestly, I want those things ditched. Like, those things shouldn't be in the game. Inquisitorial henchmen, Inquisitors, as much as they're fluffy for a competitive standpoint, they muddy up the water essentially.
Exaction squads.
Yeah, you know,
which they
I'm a
fixed technically, I guess.
yeah. I mean, no one's gonna take 10 of them at 50 points a pop. Like that's not gonna happen. You know, 100, I should say, 100 points for the squad, 10 points a pop. Um, you know, and the big thing for Grey Knights is something has to give for shooting wise, because their main thing was that they could do meltas beforehand. They don't have a ton of last cannon, and having no source of rerolls, the last cannons are very limited. So, and the melta being nerfed to strength 9, I shouldn't say nerfed, they're only strength 9, which in previous editions they would wound a T12 model, quote unquote, a knight on 4s, and now they wound them on 5s. In fact, they wound a lot of vehicles on 5s.
Yeah.
I want to see something with higher AP, 2 shots, maybe 1 shot anti-tank go into Grey Knights, whether it's a rework on the heavy side cannon or a brand new psychic weapon that they get that can be used, I don't know, somehow as like something. They need to fix the problem where they can take out armor from ranged. Because right now, the only way I beat that War Dog list is with good vortexes and lethal hits from the Terminators. Without
Hmm.
that, it was going to be just the slog. You
Yeah.
know, and actually Drago. Drago picked up 2 of the dogs himself, but and he's just insane.
Did he?
Yeah, well, I mean, he gets when he joins the regular Terminators, they confer the lethal hits to him. That's how 10th
Yeah.
edition works.
Yeah.
So you roll a couple 6s at -4, it just goes straight through. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, his damage 3. And they only have 12 wounds, so and just you just need 3 more to go through from the squad,
Yeah.
who are winning on
That's
5s on a
fair.
regular War Dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would sum it up to be something ranged, good AP, doesn't need to be a ton of shots. Interceptors need to be useful in a codex with like 5 data sheets. Purifiers are still okay. Maybe make them OC2 or something, you know.
Mhm.
And then obviously the rerolls, having no access, whether it's a character joining
Yeah.
it, making one of the characters do rerolls. There is a character that does rerolls, but it's only for himself, which doesn't
Yep.
do a whole lot.
Well, we have that, there's that enhancement that's like +1 to wound. And you're like, yay, that sounds so cool. And then you realize it's only the bearer's model that gets the
Yeah.
+1 to wound. And you're like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh. Or, the Grandmaster that has the Space Marine Captain ability that is only once per battle.
Yeah. That's super lame.
It's like,
And
that was just a mistake where they left out the word round. Like,
yeah.
we all know it. It wasn't caught in proofreading or whatever, but here we are.
Proofreading?
Yes,
There's no
still
such thing as proofreading, right?
still stuck with it. Well, I let you know I got that Thunderhawk lately. What do you think about that?
It's a lot of points. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't think it's good, but I think it's
It's
a
not very
lot.
good, but it would be a lot of fun. You know, it's something that I might take to like a league game that I don't care about, but
Like 525 points?
I think it's more. I think it's 700.
Oh, it
I'm gonna
might
go
be.
look. I'm gonna go look.
Do it. I have the data sheet up right now. That's, in fact, I'll just switch over. Folks can see it. This data sheet is hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's 805 points.
Oh, okay. My bad. I was very, very wrong. You know what? Everybody just forget that I said that. I was very, very wrong.
So, I mean, its big thing is that you can charge when you get out of it, and it moves 20 inches. But the problem is that it's 800 points.
Well, the some of these guns are nuts. The Thunderhawk heavy cannon blast, 48-inch range, D6 +6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 10 -2, 3 damage. Blast? Like, you send that into some Terminators and they're not having a great time.
Yeah, but again, it's strength 10. It could be strength 12, and it would still not be great.
Yeah, no, that's fair. There's a strength 20 gun in here.
That's
-4.
fair. The laser,
D6,
right? The turbo
yeah.
laser.
And it's D3 +1 attacks too. So strength 20 -4 AP D6 +6 damage.
Yeah, I think it only gets one of these, the turbo laser or the heavy
Yes,
cannon.
yes, you do have to pick between those two, but or maybe it's the Hellstrike you have to pick from as well. Oh, I see. The Hellstrike, you can grab the cluster bombs or the missile. The cluster bombs I'll just forget about using anyway, so I'm just taking the
Yep.
Hellstrike battery. And then the heavy cannon can be replaced with the laser destructor.
I think it's like 200 points a shot there. Not a big deal. No big
Yeah,
deal.
that's fine. Hey, you have some twin heavy bolters as well. Come on, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, the famous AP1 in 10th edition. Might as well
Mm-hmm.
be AP0.
Yeah, fantastic.
And in fact, AP0 I like a little bit more because then 3-up saves don't get an improvement on cover.
It's still impossible to even put a Thunderhawk on a board, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can do it on
Well,
hammer
you
and
have a
anvil, but
yeah, you have a metal one, right?
yeah, it is like if you wanted to kill somebody, you could put that thing in a pillowcase and kill somebody. Yeah.
It's gonna be a strong pillowcase.
Yeah,
It
that's
better
true.
be a burlap
Yeah,
sack or something.
it's like 5 or 6 pieces of really solid pewter, so
Yeah.
it's no joke, but I think the newer one in resin is a lot better, but I'm never
Yeah.
gonna get rid of it.
Yeah. I mean, you already have it, right?
Yep.
So going back to the question though of what are we hoping for in the codex? So in ninth, like I was really excited for those brotherhoods. And I know that in a competitive scene, you're always going to find like the one or two that stand out, right? The like two best. I really hope we can narrow that gap though, you know, because
With the
like,
new detachments.
yeah. So, and I don't know if Grey Knights are even going to get more than one. I mean, I don't, we haven't even seen, I guess we've seen the Tyranids and now the Space Marine one is on pre-order. So we've seen
Yeah, each
some
of
of the
them have 6
detachments.
and the
Yeah.
Space Marines have 7. I think we're gonna see multiple detachments for Grey Knights. I think that's realistically, I think you'll see 3 to 4. I think
Yeah.
even if you
That
saw more than
feels,
3 to 4,
yeah.
the rest are just gonna be garbage, right? There's gonna be like 3 or 4 that just don't work.
But that's what I'm
But
saying is like I was really hoping we could like narrow that gap where at least they're all interesting.
um
But I'm sure
yeah,
oh,
I
go
really
ahead,
hope
dude.
that they come out with a detachment if you're not taking teleport strike, which I think for the points per models and how their shooting works right now, um it's got to buff something. It's got to buff shooting. One of the attachments has to buff shooting, and then the other one should probably have to do with, I don't know, whether it's rerolls or buffing combat somehow, giving AP to combat, who
Yeah.
knows? But it's gonna be a hard sell to beat teleport strike. I'm gonna be honest. Like
It's
I
true.
just
Yeah,
I'm
that's
having
true.
not enough foresight to think about what could be better for Grey than that, just for how the army works right now. Because I think they kind of wrote themselves in a corner with the data slates, with their lack of options essentially. Everybody
Yeah.
else has got free war gear. Grey Knights have always only had the 3 options, right? Side cannon, incinerator, or silencer.
Yeah.
And then they had weapon options, but they took those away. So now
Yeah.
Grey Knights have even less options. So I'm having
But
trouble envisioning.
even so, like we all from a competitive standpoint, we all already figured out every edition or even metas within editions. Like we already figured out what the best weapon was. You know, during AOC times, like everybody switched back to swords because it had more AP to try to punch through AOC, right? But then for the rest of the game, pretty much everybody was rolling, halberds for all the way through ninth, from what I can remember. I think in eighth or seventh, like the falchions were king, so you'd see
Yeah,
entire
the
armies with
maracas.
with the maracas. Yeah, you'd see entire armies where every model has the falchions, but then it's like, oh, new edition, pop off those arms, put on the new weapon or whatever, right? So even if we had weapon options, people are going to be like, take all hammers or whatever the meta is at the time,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're gonna be people like me that will just find a way and model it however.
yeah, for
Uh,
me, it's
I,
been nice modeling new models because I can just put whatever melee weapon on them I want now.
and you can
And
go with what's cool.
yeah, and like And I think it's cool when individual models have slightly different loadouts, right? Like,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. When you have a hammer in the squad, you have a falchion guy, you know, a sword guy, and 2 polearms. Like, that looks way better than like all swords or something.
And that actually
Personally.
plays into the Grey Knights, you know, because the Grey Knights aren't supposed to be numerous, so their squads aren't like these regimented, you know, they are in some ways, but they're not like these or old Legion squads
Yeah.
where they're all regimented. Everybody's got a bolter, you know, everybody's a unique personality. They're there to fight demons, you know, they're specifically to extinguish demons. So
Have
they're worried more about that than they are about squad tactics.
have
At
you
least that's my
No, I mean, I think that makes sense, right? Like, the warriors are trained for decades before they even step foot on the battlefield. Like, they probably, one guy's like, no, I really do like this sword more than that hammer. You know,
yeah,
he's like, I'm going to
exactly.
use this sword forever because it's a,
Yeah, it's like Death Watch.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the Death
exactly.
Watch, they don't do the whole squad things. You know, they do have like their kill teams, but they take the strengths of all the different chapters and let them cook essentially. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel like the Grey Knights do.
So, have you put them into demons yet?
Grey Knights,
Yeah.
it's not great for demons. Drago is insane.
Yeah, no, Drago just stomps demons, yeah, but
Yep.
uh
You just save CP, ditch secondaries for CP against demons, and then turn on that devastating wounds with Drago every time. Like I had him walk into Shalaxi and pick her up. And, you know, it's just.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's not a good time for them.
Interesting. How many games you got with them now?
With
Intent.
Grey Knights?
Yeah, intent.
Ooh, 20 plus, I
Okay.
want to say.
I have 2. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
I've
Starting
been
strong, but
I've
you've been busy.
I've been playing my Death Watch. So like I wanted to bring this up earlier when you were talking about the skill ceiling of Grey Knights. We had a big GT come through here, and I went and I was deciding, like, do I take my Grey Knights or do I take my Death Watch? Because the Death Watch rules were really interesting. I love, you know, the special issue ammo strats and stuff. The whirlwinds are really good now. But I also didn't. I had Desolation Marines, but I didn't want to actually play them because I just hate them. Like, from a game design standpoint and a model standpoint, I don't like those models.
You don't like Nerf guns?
I don't like Nerf guns, and I don't like the idea of an indirect fire unit that ignores all the special rules for indirect fire that are put in place to make indirect fire not bullshit. You know? And then here comes a brand new model line that's just like, we're bullshit.
You know, I'm glad they got nerfed into oblivion. So
yeah, me too. But my point was, like, I had to make the decision, like, do I want to take my Grey Knights and be just racking my brain at 110% for 5 games? Or do I want to take my Death Watch where I can, you know, be a little more, like, I can be a little more forgetful, not have it hurt so bad, right? I can make them, they're more forgiving just because Grey Knights were, especially at the time, very expensive. And Death Watch, at least you can punch or shoot your way out of a mistake. Okay. And you can't do that with Grey Knights. Like, if you've made a mistake in the movement phase, you know, you're going to lose models, and it hurts a lot more when you lose Grey Knights. So I made the decision to play my Death Watch.
it's kind of funny though. Out of Marines, the Death Watch is probably the harder one to play out of the Marines. So.
No, they are. And I was joking with my buddy Zach yesterday. I'm like, you know what? It's actually kind of nice. Like, I don't have to pick an oath target. I don't have to pick a second oath target. I don't have to remember what doctrine I'm in. I don't have to remember anything right now. Like, I'm just playing the data sheets. Like, if I have a question, it's right there, right? Like, this is exactly what they do. So, so in a way, Grey Knights were more freeing in that way, where you're not remembering all the little, like, you know, a Proteus kill team and their 47 different weapons that they have. You know, Grey Knights, they all have the same weapons.
Many.
Go.
That's true.
Right. Yeah. So in some ways they're easier to play, but the teleport strike, picking the right units at the right time, You know, playing those secondary games, not trying to get too aggressive. I'm still too aggressive a lot of the time, and Grey Knights, you can't really do that. I really should be an orc player, if I'm honest. Just
Wog.
move up, wah, and charge, kill some stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Grey Knights are definitely a far cry from what they used to be. You know, slam 4 Dread Knights and run them at your opponent, shoot stuff. Giving yourself AP and rerolls. You know, that that that's done with, man.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah. I have 7 Dread Knights.
I've. I don't actually. I think you have more than me. I've got 5.
Yeah. I have 5 that I'll actually put on the table because 2 were eBay rescues and they are painted. Even though I repainted them when I first started this hobby, and they are painted horrifically, and so I won't even put them on a table. So I have 5 really.
You and I differ there. I'll put whatever on the table. I don't care.
Oh.
My Eldar are notoriously called Hobo Eldar. So.
Oh boy, just whatever
But,
colors.
well, because there are times where I like get a bug, right, and I'll do some painting, and at those different times, what I liked was not the same, right? So I've got like white and red Eldar, and then I've got some blue and black, and then I've got some red. I've even got like this guy who's like a dragon schemed autarch on a bike. I use as
Yeah.
a Farseer on a bike right now. But it just doesn't match, and so it ends up
Oh, I
clashing. But
see. I see. So your individual units and models don't match with an overall army scheme.
correct. And so
Got it.
I won't say that they're all like my war spiders are probably the worst painted war spiders I've ever seen. There are the epitome of battle ready. So, but everything else is like decent. So, but it just looks like not as good because it's not matching. Matching looks good.
Yeah, that's fair.
My Grey Knights match, and actually my Grey Knights are pretty beautiful considering how much I don't paint. But
Are you
I'm
one
not
of
kidding. They're actually
those?
look like good looking bases and good looking models.
Are are you one of those commission dudes or?
No, nobody could pay me to paint. Not a chance.
No, no. I mean, do you pay other people to paint your models? Do you use commission
Um,
painters?
I will, but selectively. I don't do it to get armies painted
Mm,
because I find the best results lie in letting an artist be an artist and just saying, take your time, do what you want to do the paint scheme you want to do, and we'll go from there. If you need guidance, I will help, but
mm,
only a couple armies. But I would say the person who helps me the most is my buddy Scott, who's actually my partner in Advanced Warfare.
mm.
He helps me get stuff ready for tournaments more than anybody else, and he doesn't charge me a dime. So probably
I hope Scott's not
he's a
listening to
saint.
this then.
Yeah,
'Cause-
he probably is, and he knows it. He's a saint for doing it. But I mean, I do get most of my own stuff together, but there's just some times where chef life interferes with Warhammer life.
yeah. It's almost like you have to have a real job, and then you have a family, and your family wants your time too, and then you have
That's
this
true.
hobby that also makes a little bit of money, but like, it's not gonna
That's
it's not gonna pay your mortgage.
that's fair. Or benefits. That's a big one. I
Yeah.
like having benefits.
Yep.
Like paid time off. That's nice.
Health insurance. What's that?
And health insurance. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
America. Yeah.
Cheers. So,
But yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna ask, like, what are the hardest matchups right now? I mean, you already mentioned GSC just because they can move all over the place. You're already thinking way far ahead about NIDS and then their new codex and what they can do. Because what's their new? It's not a new unit, but it's a new ability on a unit that lets them have the infiltrator omni scramble bubble, basically.
Yeah, this was an enhancement out of the
Oh, it's an enhancement. Okay.
synaptic
Mm-hmm.
imperative, the synaptic detachment, and it's a no deep strike within 12. But it is a synapse model only, so that is kind of nerf, you know. And honestly, you're going to see more hive fleets. The thing that's been really racking my brain is how to deal with the squad of 3 Carnifexes with old One Eye, and then also the Norn emissary who has a 4-up invuln with the 5-up feel no pain OC 15 on an objective of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically Grey Knights don't have the power to put one down before it can get to the objective, so it's gonna have the 5-up Feel No Pain. So, I'm thinking about how can I sew that up, because the OC-15 is really just gonna make it so that I can't play the mission as well as I want to. So,
Right.
um, I would say the hardest matchups for Grey Knights outside of GSC, because like I said, GSC being able to do their own 3-inch deep strike and having like 20-man bodies that can screen out large portions of the board. I'd say Eldar are pretty up there still, because one, Eldar are still bullshit, and two, they're fast enough to get angles on stuff that you don't pick up for teleport strike.
Didn't you just win a
Uh,
GT, a major with Eldar? Didn't
I
you
did,
just went like last weekend?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I won Flying Monkey with Eldar. But I mean, it's fair to say that there's stuff out there that the Grey Knights excel into as well. Because like I feel like into regular Marines, this is not Templar, who don't have a 6. Well, because the 6-up Feel No Pain matters a lot, which most Templar people are going to take.
I mean,
But
but don't they
the
get a
vortexes,
like auto wound psychers on 4s or something?
yes,
Or
they can
3s?
do anti-psyker 4-up. They have a 4-up
Okay.
invuln versus psychic attacks, or 4-up Feel No Pain. I have to go look at it.
Yeah.
I've never considered taking it. I would still take Uphold the Honor of the Emperor. But anyway,
Okay.
regular Marines they do very well into, because the vortexes just go through. So you get your maximum damage there. There's a lot of Feel No Pain. There's not a lot of that, and like the
Mhm.
-1 damage out of the Redemptors doesn't matter, because it's not, it's not an attack, it's just an ability. Um, and then probably my least favorite matchup outside of GSC is, I mean, besides Eldar, I should say those two are pretty bogus, because of Fire and Fade and Phantasm on Eldar, plus the extra AP, like getting demo charges up to AP like 4 and just blasting Grey Knights off the board. That's not great. Um, Thousand Suns would probably be one that I don't like, because of Doombolt and Magnus. They can do lots of devastating wounds. That's 3 damage.
Yeah, the can't they also they have an ability to make our psychic weapons hazardous or something, right?
Yeah, they do, but I feel like they're not going to use their Cabal points for that, because if they do, it's like hazardous is just one roll, and it's our psychic weapons are only in combat. Really, I mean, sure, the Psy Cannons and the Paladins, but I mean, you could kill a Paladin with that. I might use that, but overall, I think I'm going to save it for full rerolls or using a strat again, which got way worse. But the full rerolls of Magnus is probably what I would save it for, because then he can do devastating like crazy.
Got it.
But yeah, Thousand
Okay.
Suns would be up there. Granted, with the Libbies, you can have a 4-up Feel No Pain versus the
Doombolt and stuff.
Doombolt and stuff, or
Yeah.
because it's considered psychic attack. But just the amount of devastating that they can, the output that they can do to you, especially turning off armor saves, can be just gnarly.
And they can only turn off armor saves, not invul saves, or is it all saves?
Yeah, but the combo is that they do that with the flamers. So the flamers that you'd normally have a 2-up against, you have a 4-up, which is
Mhm.
really
Right.
not great when you're
Yeah.
eating like 25 wounds.
Yeah. Better than no saves at all, but no, it's
That's
still
fair.
not great. Still not great. Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of no saves at all, how do you feel about the devastating wounds change? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was
I
overreaching?
both like and hate it. I like it from a game balance standpoint. I hate it because it has legitimately invalidated things that give you saves versus mortal wounds.
Uh,
If you know what I'm saying, like custodes.
yeah, they
The
were very
devastating
upset at
wounds.
the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard
it
how
just
mad they were.
wrecks custodes now
Yeah,
because it's not a mortal wound. It's just you don't get a save.
yeah.
Period. But and then stuff like Drago's ability, that he gives the squad versus mortal wounds.
Mm.
What does
Four
that apply
ups.
to now? Tank shocks and grenades.
Yeah.
But for the stuff that it did to Eldar, super love it, because I don't like that a Wraith Knight can sit down, sit and overwatch something with guide and kill it in their shooting phase or in their movement phase without breaking a sweat. I did that to people. That's not fun. It wasn't fun to play either. So I like it in that aspect that it's not doesn't turn a weapon into a see all beat all tool. So I guess that sums it up for me
Yeah.
for devastating wounds.
Okay. Do you think Grey Knights are appropriately pointed right now?
Like I said, I think some of the units are appropriate. I think the Terminators are great. I
Mhm.
would not drop them any lower. With the Apothecary in there, they already get enough free stuff. The Strikes might need to come down a little bit because there's just not a whole lot they can do. The Interceptors are definitely too high. All their vehicles are still a little bit too high, and some of their characters are too high because some of their characters do nothing, absolutely nothing. They can't even join squads that are useful because Purifiers, like you're not going to take Purifiers over Strikes right now because they're not necessarily the better option over a Terminator, and two, like Strikes are just sticky, and OC2,
But
that's what you're using those smaller squads for. So
but then also you like look at the Purifier and you're like, that's not bad data sheet. And then you look at Crow and you're like, okay, like why would you take Purifiers without Crow?
you have to take Crow with them.
That's what I mean. Like it's that synergy is so good that you wouldn't not take or you would not leave Crow at home if you're gonna take Purifiers, because like
Right.
they make their little psychic shooting twice as good, literally twice as good.
Yep.
Like so so yeah, which is all anti-infantry 3+ or whatever.
Yep.
Like,
I don't dislike it. I just think that Strikes are better. And
yeah.
then the Apothecary and the Terminators just puts them over the top. Being able to res a dude. It's really
Yeah,
strong.
it's real good, real good.
The way I see it is that it just adds more meat to keep the Libby safe. Just keep resing it, dude. Keep him safe.
Man, that's funny. You really love them Libbies. I mean, I do too, but it's very, very funny how targeted you are. So Pizza Bagels in chat today, we were actually talking, and he says he kind of want to tries out Brother Captain Stern. I'll switch back over to the data slate or sheet here. Just as like a tech choice, and you don't attach him to anything. You can use him. He's on a 40mm base. You can drop him down, do like crazy secondaries, like pick him back up, all that stuff. But what's interesting is he has Strands of Fate. So on a 2-up, after he dies, he comes back at full wounds.
Yeah, I don't mind him actually. He's like the Grey Knight Slizik or whatever, that demon prince that just won LGT. That's exactly how he was using him. I don't mind that. And that was a 200-point model doing that. This is a 90-point dude. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
If I had 90 points in my list, he'd be there.
He actually does have an interesting leader
Pump the
ability
Libby's
too.
into my veins. What's that?
I said he does actually have another interesting leader ability too, called Exemplar of the Silvered Host. And it's while this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack on a critical wound, so a 6 to wound, the target also takes 1 mortal wound in addition to the normal damage.
Yeah, it's the old school tide of conversions.
Yeah,
he gives them tide of conversions.
It's not bad. It's not good enough to take him and make him a leader, I don't think. But the Strands of Fate thing is pretty funny. Because he has 6 wounds, T5, 2-up save, 4-up invul. He's only got a 40mm base, so if you need to do like behind enemy lines for a quick 4 points or whatever, you can do that.
Yep.
And then if they try to kill him, he just comes back on a 2-up. And if they don't try to kill him, you grab him and do it again.
Yep. No, I do like
funny.
him. I just have all my points are just stuffed into other stuff. I really like the 2-strike squads. If the problem is that I am stuck on 2-strike squads. If I could think I could get away with 1, I would take him in a heartbeat. But because I feel like I need the second ability to sticky, and it's not necessarily the second ability, It's the fact that in case another strike squad, I have the ability to lose a strike squad. I don't have to protect them from hell and high road. You know what I mean? Like I can actually go out and sticky something a little bit more dangerous with one of my squads.
Yeah.
Um, and sticky is one of the best rules in the game when it comes to Grey Knights because they need it so bad, being able to teleport strike. And then it also makes it so that your opponent has to worry about unsticking an objective while screening you out. It's just a powerful board manipulation tool. So I'm stuck on 2 strike squads is my answer. Otherwise, he would be in my list in a heartbeat.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fat on this list. Nothing to really trim out because you need your 3 Libbies. You're not gonna leave Drago at home, so there are your characters, right?
Yep.
I mean, you already dropped a Brotherhood Terminator squad for a Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight.
He would be about the only thing I would cut, but my issue is that I'm already really good at mission play. I probably don't need to accentuate that. I need to accentuate the shortcomings of the vehicle killing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
So
could you? So the Paladins. I mean, we already went over this, but let's go over it again, mostly because
sure.
I am a child and need to have things explained to me multiple times. So the Paladins, right? They're 450 points for 10 dudes. Then you're putting a Libby in there, so that's a 550 point unit. You're dropping them down to come in within 3. That's now 21 OC on that. You know, if you can fit every base, which is super unlikely, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Potentially 21 OC. You then the Libby goes off. The Libby purges soul. The Libby shoots with the combi weapon. You have 5 Psy cannons going off. You got, 4 storm bolters. And then if they move at all, you can miss them out. Is that like? I know you can't get that many Psy cannons on a Terminator squad, but is this where you could maybe trim some fat, or is it because of the -1 to wound specifically, making them just so much harder to kill?
No, I have thought about that actually, because I have at the GT or not GT, RTT, I did only have a 5-man paladin unit.
That's right. Yep.
Um,
That's
and
we
that
know where your
seemed to work
points went.
okay. Yep. That seemed to work okay. I was just a little concerned about the longevity because I do like using them to absorb some heat when I need them to because of the -1 to wound at the higher toughness stuff. And it just ended up being like, only having 2 dudes to die and then you get the special weapons. The squad lost power quick. I suppose you could technically say you had, so the Paragon and 1 dude dies and then you're on to Psy Cannons essentially, with the banner and the 2 Psy Cannon dudes. So, taking that extra heat and having no res there, it didn't seem like a worthwhile investment at that point. And it's funny that I say that because increasing the investment made them more worthwhile because there's just more meat around the edges that
Mm-hmm.
can die.
Yeah.
So, but that is a good point. That is something I could consider going a little bit. I don't want to say MSU, but just not a max squad of paladins because Grey Knights and MSU are not in the same. They are not the same. Like you're not gonna. You don't have multiple. You have very few.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the other benefits to the Paladins obviously are, they hit on 2s with everything.
Yep.
They're -1 to be wounded. But the downsides are you don't have the apothecary, and you don't get lethal hits on the charge. So
Correct.
but I mean, if you're dropping them in within 3 inches consistently anyway, like you're not charging. So
Yeah, and the only time you're really fighting in combat is when you get charged. With, like I said, with the Jurassic Park maneuver. Uh, but they're okay with that. They're pretty tough cookies to crack, as you were talking about earlier. So
mm-hmm.
having that 10 man is pretty strong in that aspect.
Yeah.
But then the thing that I've been doing with them a lot is stringing them out pretty far and kind of doing a handlebar because they have to be 2 inches of 2 inches if they're over 6 models in this edition. But you can still do like a dog bone or or a barbell, whatever you want to talk about,
Yeah, I
or however
gotcha.
you want to say it. And then that makes their footprint so big that you can, if they want to not move, that's a lot of their resources not moving, which is essentially what I use those paladins for.
Okay.
Is to basically make it so that if you do want to not move, you are giving me the board. But if you do move, then I'm gone and I don't take any damage. So that's kind of how I've been using and then why I use a big 10-man paladin brick. If I wasn't using a 10-man paladin brick, I probably would have a 10-man terminator brick with just less
Yeah.
special weapons to
Yeah.
still do the same thing. But it just, I feel like the paladins hitting on 2s, having the extra special weapons, was the banner and the 2 extra in the squad in a 10-man, giving a grand total of 5. It's just, it's enough for me to switch it,
And hitting on
even without the
twos.
apothecary. And hitting on 2s is a
Like
big one because they
that's
have no
that
rerolls.
exactly. No reroll. Threes with rerolls great. Twos with rerolls also good, but decidedly they need rerolls less when if they're hitting on twos versus threes for sure.
Correct. And there's way less -1 to hit in this game than there
Mm-hmm.
used to be in 9th edition because forests don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's just basically stratagems and whether or not they have stealth. And not a ton of stuff has stealth these days.
Corvus Blackstar.
Well,
Still not
okay.
worth taking. Not
You got
competitively.
me.
Still an amazing model, but yeah, not a competitive model, which makes me sad. One of these days, although if the Corvus is good, that means every other flyer in the game is probably good, and then that means we're gonna have another horrible edition of flyers just ruining everybody's game. Like
I don't know what you're talking about.
like the old AdMech flyers from 9th. Yeah, there you go. Now you're making the face. I was gonna say, there's no way
Well,
you don't know what I'm talking about. Or the orc.
I was a bad man back in the day and played the Eldar flyer list, which was -3 to hit essentially.
Yeah, the impossible
So
to hit. Yeah,
yeah,
Eldar list.
yep. It do be like that.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, I'm gonna remind you again, like we're doing this live, so you can ask questions. Ben is a wealth of knowledge. He's been playing this game for a very long time. He's been a coach for a long time. If you do need coaching, he's over at Advanced Warfare on Patreon. You should check it out. I've been a student of yours for what, a year and a half or something now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a long time.
Ben will sit down with
Appreciate it.
you before tournaments and go over the missions deck and your list, and he'll help you plan a list, and you can come up with a game plan, and it really helps take a lot of the anxiety off of like going to these big tournaments. So
Yep.
yeah, I think
It's a
you should check.
it's a beautiful tool. So
Yeah. You should check it out if you're interested, obviously. So what else do I want to talk about? Let's see. Talked about their maneuverability. Oh yeah, do you have any like just little tips, like little crazy tricks that maybe people haven't thought about? Like, for instance, because of the scout move on the strike squads, Derek over 40k Dirtbags, he was best Grey Knight last year. He had a cool little trick where almost every single map in the current tournament pool is with the first objective is within 6 inches of your deployment zone. So if you go second, or if you go first, you can like scout move out, take it, and then on your turn you can move back behind cover. And I've never had units that did scout moves, so like I'm sure that that's old hat for people who play like GSC or whatever else that has scout moves, but for me that wasn't a thing I'd ever thought about. But that's a really cool trick. Like that means you don't have to immediately go take the center, but it also means that your opponent now has to come take the center because they need to unsticky it,
I would say my biggest tip for Grey Knights is that when you draw a quote unquote crap secondary turn 1, it's actually straight gold.
Because it's 1 CP.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Because Grey Knights have 0 way of getting command points.
Mm-hmm.
So most people can't score all their secondaries first turn. If you do, you're pretty lucky. But like as an example, Shakir No Man's Land is going to be very hard for Grey Knights to do without overexposing yourself. Now, granted, that's one that you can probably wanted to get later game, but like behind enemy lines, turn 1 is pretty tough to get, even with first to the fray, because most, generally speaking, you're in their face. You know, like they're not, you're not in their face, but I'm sorry, but they're in your face, like completely in their zone, especially if they know you first to the fray. Uh, but getting those command points early so you can miss every turn, you can true silver armor when you need to, you know, when you are going to take some damage,
Hmm.
and then to 3-inch steep strike, because pretty much your command points are guaranteed to go to 3-inch steep strike while there's still a lot left, and then also miss a demos.
Miss, yeah. Miss is so good.
So
That's
anytime you
yeah.
can mix in true silver by dropping a, you know, a secondary, and sometimes if I'm gonna have like deploy teleport homers and the only one I can get is the middle, I might throw that for a CP, because that might mean 5 points later on, because I can 3-inch deep strike, or I can true silver armor and keep primary. Um,
That's a good point.
so that's trying to foresee when you need to do that is gonna be like a little difficult, and this is where I talk about how they're kind of pretty hard to play. Um, deploy teleport homers is a bad example, because you can do that really easily as Grey Knights.
Yeah. Especially if you
But
take
here's,
Stern in your list.
yeah, but how about overwhelming force or no prisoners? You know, those are ones that you can probably accomplish, but you might have to expose yourself too much to do, or it just, you know, because there's just not a lot of damage that you
Yeah.
can deal out. So if you can't, like, if you can only get a smaller one of those, I would most likely ditch that for a command point instead. I'm just trying to score it. Now, obviously, ones automatically score are just gonna happen. Like, but assassinate's a good one, because chances are, if you can get to somebody's character as Grey Knights, they are probably already in trouble,
Yeah.
because you are not gonna be in position to kill characters all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
Assassinate is definitely not. There's no way to do that like super reliably. Like Death Watch, if you pull Assassinate, you look at the board state and you can get a bunch of like shooting into one good spot. You can pop Precision on your whole army for the rest of the turn and start
Right. I mean, you can
cranking
epic
out
challenge,
Assassinate. Yeah. Oh, that's
but
true. You can Epic Challenge as well.
the only issue
With
is that
Drago.
the only one who's really good at that is Drago, and
Drago.
then pretty much has to be like dictates your turn and where your CP is gonna go. So something's, you know, something's got to give.
Yeah.
So that's, and I guarantee you, every time you want to save a CP for that reroll on Drago's charge, because 6 inches, while it seems mathematically easy, I think the bell curve on it is it's still got a decent chance to fail. So you want to, with a reroll, I think it's in the 80s with the 6-inch.
It should be
So
in
you
the
want,
80s with a
so
reroll.
with the reroll, without
Yeah.
the reroll, you know, it's still a decent
I
chance,
mean,
but
it's
it's
50-50 without the reroll. It's
I
it's
think it's
six
like
inches.
60.
No,
7
I
inches
guess
would
it's. I
be
guess yeah.
50-50.
I guess it. Yeah. I guess it's. That's right. I forgot one isn't actually in that.
Right.
It's 2 through 12, not 1 through 12. But yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's like off the top of my head, 16, like 15 worse options to get on the 2 dice. Or no, it's 11 worse. So it's around a 65% chance and goes up to the 80s with the reroll. So I would,
So
yeah, I have failed it a lot. That's what I'm getting at.
got it. One of the questions we have from Matt Perry is, how do you feel about a GM with a pally brick? I see that a lot and I like it. So this
I
is
do like
the one on foot, obviously. Yeah.
yeah, I do like it. I have thought about that quite a bit, actually, because the Grandmaster, his ability is the once per battle thing is actually kind of a bummer.
That's a
Because
bummer.
it's supposed to be, you know,
And now it's even worse because like the only thing you can use it on is what, Radiant Strike or something? Like didn't they change what
yeah,
you can use it on too?
yeah, but Radiant Strike is 2 CPs, so that's not awful.
No, it's not awful. I'm just saying that it used to be like you could true silver armor. And I don't
Right,
think
but
you can now. because it's
I
not a
do
battle
like
tactic or
the
whatever.
ignore modifiers in the paladin brick. I do like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going into again orcs like yesterday, and with the war bosses in with the knobs, they're -1 to be wounded,
Right.
and I'm just like, ugh, right? Like I'm wounding everything on 4s now. That's awful.
The
Yeah.
where this comes into play is with the side cannons, because they're always going to hit on 2s then, and then on top of that,
Yeah.
um, I believe, and I'd have to go check through some loopholes, because to be honest, they did overcomplicate trying to find where all these modification stuff is. I do believe AOC affects the characteristic of the weapon with the armor penetration, and then the damage roll as well. So they'll still get cover, but AOC won't necessarily work against it if they're in the open, and then the -1 damage or half damage won't go through. So I do like that. I just still think with the cover being a thing that it's just still a little bit underwhelming. If
Yeah.
they had AP2, we would be having a different conversation. AP2 is so much better than AP1. So
It's not even twice as good. It's like 3 times as good.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
I had an interesting thing come up. I was wondering if a librarian could overwatch and use its psychic ability, because it says in the shooting phase, and then overwatch says as if it's your shooting phase. So I
Yeah,
think you can vortex on overwatch by raw, but that also feels like it's probably not right.
well, let me just go, and I'm pretty sure the core rules say, well, when your omens can eligible to shoot as if they can
Yeah.
shoot as if it were
Well,
your
your
shooting
shooting
phase.
phase, yeah. And then
And
go ahead.
I don't believe the vortex says that you can do it.
It says
It's
in
just
your shooting
happening,
phase.
right? But it doesn't say when your
Yeah.
unit shoots. So I think that's going to be the hang
Oh,
up
okay.
there.
That's the. I was wondering
Yeah, just in your
about
shooting,
that.
which I actually really like that, because you can wait for damage on like your paladin brick side cannons, and then be like, okay, well this didn't quite die, so now I'm gonna vortex it.
Yeah.
So
It's not in your like the end of your movement phase or something like that.
nope, it's
Which
in the
used
shooting
to be
phase
called
whenever
the
you want.
psychic phase.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer.
Ken is asking, do you prefer going first or second?
Second, hardcore with Grey
Yeah.
Knights. I like second.
I there are very few games, even with my Death Watch, where I don't look at the board state and say, oh yeah, I definitely want to go first. You know.
With my Eldar, first every time.
Oh really?
Yeah, because then
Interesting.
I can get
Yeah.
my BS going. You know, Phantasm, Fire and
Oh,
Fade,
got it.
and then I've got command points to go along with it.
Yeah,
But
that's like how it used to feel to in Ninth to play Grey Knights and not go first because none of your psychic buffs are up.
correct.
None of it. Like Sanctuary wasn't up. You didn't have any of that stuff, and so for that first turn, you could get swatted pretty hard if you deployed poorly. So I agree. For Grey Knights, I want to go second, like pretty much every game. In fact, I'm just gonna say every game. Because the amount of games where it's going to be the other way are going to be so small that it's effectively, I want to go like second every single game. I mean, even with my Death Watch, because Death Watch have a similar, with the Teleportarium stratagem, they have a similar thing to Teleport Assault, where they can grab 2 kill teams or 1 unit at the end of their opponent's turn and put them into Deep Strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing where like I want to go second so I can use that, and I can grabbing 660 points of my army plus characters and repositioning it exactly where I want it on my turn 1 is pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, especially with Grey Knights too. Grey Knights doing that, it's just playing mind games. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Matt Perry is also asking, how often do you use plunging fire? With porting everywhere, it seems really easy to get.
A lot. Every time I can with Grey Knights.
Mm-hmm.
If the terrain allows me to do it, I'm doing it.
Yeah. -2 AP strength 6 flamers are no joke.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do it mostly with the side cannons because I can get the 3-inch drop and be able to do it. So that there are guys on the first and second floor.
mhm,
Because I don't care about the storm bolters, I care about the side cannons being up
right.
there. But
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
was really terrain dependent because there are
Yeah.
pieces of terrain that you can't fit 5 Terminator bases on top of that second level. It's unfortunate, but it is.
Yeah. Well, you can leave some on the bottom, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, but there are 5 special weapons, so I want to get all 5 up there. But
Oh, okay. I'm
most of the
tracking
time, it's
that.
4
Yeah.
that I can get up
With the
there. So
paladin
Banner Bro usually
specifically.
stays down. Yeah,
Got it.
talking about the paladins.
Banner bro.
Yep.
Banner bro with his tall banner ends up being stuck on the bottom floor,
Yeah, that's very true.
slapping it into the, slapping it right into the roof.
Yep.
So what
I
other?
mean, that is a way to sew up the AP problem, but that, like I said, that's terrain dependent, and sometimes it's just not there, unfortunately.
I'm not even
But
sure that I would really. I mean, it's not. It's helping the AP problem. I don't know if it's solving it.
yeah, that's a fair statement.
Yeah. Also, the flamers ignore cover, so your AP2 is actually going to be AP2, not AP1.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
yeah. The incinerators are really really good. I also think they're thematic. I'm kind of shocked that purifiers didn't get some bonus to using incinerators. I don't even know what it would
Yeah,
be, but like something.
you'd think so because their psychic power is all flames, and then they have a flamer.
Yeah,
But
like and like in the books and like the novels and stuff, they're like hardcore on that like those flavors.
yep.
But oh well. I know Tommy Pizza Bagels in chat. He was our at my invitational, which went very well. By the way, he was our best ranked Grey Knight player that was there. He came in 4th, 5th, I think. And he ran a Chappie with a 10-man Paladin brick or Terminator brick, I think. And he said that felt a lot better going into melee with +1 to wound on stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like I said, like that's probably just a difference in play style because like I'm not using my paladins to go hit stuff in combat
yeah.
because I feel like without lethal
I think it was
hits, they're
Terminators
just
actually, but yeah.
but even
Yeah.
with that, like they need something like a character buffing it. I mean, the character I'm sticking with them doesn't buff them necessarily for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is definitely an option for sure, and I really do like the whatchamacallit,
The
plus one to
Grandmaster?
wound, the
Oh yeah.
plus one to wound
The
from
the
the chaplain.
from the chaplain, yeah. It's kind of it's good that the game is designed in a way where there are interesting choices and we're even having this discussion, right? Because
Yep.
like in 9th, some of the leaders were so bad, you're like, I'm not gonna ever take any of these guys ever. For like Stern was terrible. There are others I'm probably just skipping over at the moment. Voldus was locked to one of the worst brotherhoods, so you couldn't bring Voldus.
He's so what?
Because he was actually a good model if I remember right, but he was locked to the Wardmaker Brotherhood, and the Wardmaker Brotherhood was very bad.
Yeah, I mean they were very good into very specific matchups, but
Yeah,
like so.
but if you're going to a 7-game GT, you're probably not hitting that specific matchup 7 times.
Correct.
Yeah. So I like the brother captain. I think he's neat for all psychic weapons in the unit get sustained hit 1. So that means that's in melee. That means that's the psi cannons. They'll get sustained hits, which is pretty legit. He can actually go in with a paladin squad too. The problem is though, again, like we have these awesome choices in characters, but then like you keep coming back to the Libby. I think the index hit and everybody's like, best HQ in this index, the Libby, take 3.
Yep. Well, and also all this is cool and all, but there's no re-rolls to make that really good. It's all
Exactly. Yeah.
cold dice is what I like to call that. When you have to cold roll sixes, you never can count on cold rolling sixes,
Yeah. I mean, when you
because
get,
on the flip side, you'll roll as many ones as you do sixes. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what was really interesting playing my orc friend yesterday is he brought a bunch of flash gits.
with bad
And
rock,
they're, yeah, with bad ruck. So they were re-rolling all hits. If they're standing on an objective, they get to re-roll all hits, or was that as Luda's?
no, that's just bad rock. He just
Okay,
gives a
that's
reroll.
that's just better. Yeah. So that was amazing because it was like 40 shots in with sustained hits one. In Overwatch, he was shooting like 40 times and hitting and wounding me like 12 to 20 times.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite units on
It's
the
just
Orc
like
Codex right now.
it's like what? Because of those rerolls. Like it's a lot of shots. You're fishing for those sixes for the sustained hits anyway. You have to roll sixes because it's Overwatch anyway. You know, these were paladins, so they were making them hit on sixes anyway because they were -1 to hit with Voltus in there. But I was just like, wow, and they're 2 damage. Like I was like, wow, orcs have all these rerolls. It's like I don't have any. I don't get to reroll anything except with a command point, and I'm not going to do that. You know, there are very specific circumstances where I will do a command point reroll, and it's not to try to get a sustained hit.
Yep, that's for sure. Yeah, let's go for that 1 out of 6 because I want that extra hit.
Yeah, yeah, for 1 CP. So,
You know what they could do is they could make side cannons 4 shots. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they could. I mean, yeah. So let's talk about now when the index hit, speaking of which, everybody went like ape shit for the Brotherhood champion because it gives fight first. Problem is he can only go with purgation squads and strike squads. Because he's not in Terminator armor, so you can't put him on, like, if I could give a 10-man Terminator brick fights first, that would be stellar. But you can't do that. So you can bring them with strike squads, you can bring them with purgs, and that's it. I saw some people messing around with the idea until purgs got hit with the indirect fire nerf, and now they're back down to being cheaper. But people were messing around with the idea of bringing 10 purgation squad dudes and bringing him, and then bringing like 4 flamers and 6 normal guys. But the purgation squad, like, Astral Aim is way better than it was in 9th. But it's Storm Bolters that you're mostly buffing. So,
Yep.
like, who cares?
Right.
But then it's like, but then they have fights first. It's like, yeah, and they're not terrible at melee. They have the strike squad melee profile. They have, they have the mass-crafted weapon and all that jazz. But it seems like an 85-point model to buff up a purgation squad that's now just a strike squad with more guns or with, more flamers in it doesn't really seem like it was worth its points. So I know you never got on that bandwagon. Like, I even talked to you about that, and you weren't for it.
I just don't see why, especially at the time, because Custodes also had fight first very prevalently.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's such a high point model, like, even on a strike squad, and it's not what they're supposed to be doing with either of their abilities, right? Astral Aim being the out of line of sight shooting if they have a different psyker has line of sight to their target.
Yeah.
Or the sticky from the strikes. So I just felt like the character's ability fought against the data slate's ability. So I just didn't think there was good synergy there.
Yeah. And then the alternative is you bring like a 10-man strike squad. And it's like, well, what are you going to do with that's not how you want to be using the strike squads. I guess if you wanted to make like a meme list of like six 10-man like strike squads, you could put 3 Brotherhood champions in there. But that still seems like that's obviously a meme list, right? So
Hmm. I don't think that they do enough damage. Also,
yeah.
like if they get into combat with a dreadnought, they're gonna be there forever, right?
Well, until they're all dead, but yeah.
Right. What I mean there is like they're not a like the custodes can buff themselves so that they're all comers in combat. Yeah, the Grey Knights don't really have that. They because they don't have any rerolls. You know, the custodes had the rerolls on against stuff on objectives and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and the Grey Knights just don't have that. So like I said, it's cold dice going into them, and it's not great.
Yeah. I so Matt Perry is bringing up a thing I was going to, and it's like I wish you could outfit the Brotherhood champion to also be an interceptor, like how we
That
have,
would be really nice
like
having an
how,
interceptor character.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I thought we might get is we don't have an interceptor character at all. Nobody can attach to an interceptor squad. No one. They're always out there by themselves.
Well, there you
But
go. Now
it'd
you got
be
it. Let's see that in the new codex.
it would be interesting to actually see them do like a new data sheet that says, you know, Brotherhood champion with a teleport pack, just like you get captains with jump packs or whatever, right? Same data slate, except its movement is 12.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't know. That would be more interesting.
I like that idea a lot, actually.
It also depends on his points. Like if he's 95 points, you're still not gonna put him in. Still not gonna put him in a list.
Yeah, and what his ability is while he's leading a unit.
Yeah. Well, I would assume it's the same in this instance. I'm thinking it would be the same as his current one. He would
Right.
just so he'd give the unit fight person, and he also what else does he do? He does something else. Oh, Martial Fury. Each time this model makes a melee attack, this model makes a melee attack that targets a character or a unit, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. And he has 5 attacks and 4 wounds instead of 2. That'd be cool. I would love to have an interceptor character. I think I brought that up in my redesigning the Brotherhoods for 9th edition. Series of videos.
Right.
Yeah. Skip the Tech Marine, talked about the Chaplain, Terminators, those are good. Oh, Voldus. So we mentioned it a little earlier. He's the chief librarian and he's the worst librarian.
Yep.
He's 5 points less expensive than a normal librarian. His hammer is strength 10, which is cool, but it's doesn't have devastating wounds. And his AoE, his Psyker Mortal Wounds ability is only if when the unit is selected to fight and there is a unit within engagement range of them. You roll a d6. On a 4 through 5, you do d3 mortal wounds, and on a 6, you do 2d3 mortal wounds. So you only have a
+3.
Oh, is it d3 plus 3? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Potentially 6.
Right.
Yeah. So I just like I'm looking at this data sheet, and the -1 to hit is very good. Like, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like they did him dirty, man. They did that stat sheet really dirty. Like,
Well,
no dev wounds on that hammer, really?
I think the part that kind of like grinds my gears a little bit is this Hammer of Flame psychic ability. I just know this so well because I'm a Templar fanatic. But let's go to High Marshal Helmrecht. He has the High Marshal ability, which is the same type of mortal wounds, but on a 1 it's nothing. On a 2 and 3 it's D3 mortal wounds. 4 and 5 it's 3, and then on a 6 it's D3 plus 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are written at the same time. What the
Yeah.
hell?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just compare it to, the normal to Vortex of Doom, right? Like,
Right.
Vortex is incredible.
Yep.
On a 1, you could hurt yourself, but you have mortal wounds against your own thing. Or you feel no pain against your own mortal wounds, which is nice. 2 through 5, it's 2d3, and on a 6, it's 2d6, like mortal wounds. That's an amazing amount of potential damage output,
Yep.
especially if you bring 3 of them. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, it's so good, we want to
Russian
bring
flank with
3
it.
of them, right?
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
weird. At least
It's
I do.
crazy.
But we already established that I have a problem, and it's the only fix is more librarians.
I have a problem. Oh, I just noticed Purge Soul. The focus one is just precision. That's the only difference, huh? Whoops.
Yeah, I'm never gonna try and snipe something. Purge Soul's hazardous version.
Yeah, yeah. Just want to lose the model.
I
Blow up
also
my
think it's
own
funny that in
brain.
top of Vortex they have Purge Soul as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a gun now. So.
Right.
Do you miss
Silliness.
the psychic phase? Do you find that you miss that at all?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Really?
As
I
a
find
Templar
that.
player, no, I
Yeah.
don't. As an Eldar player and a Grey Knight player, yeah, big
I
time.
I find I don't. Like going back to what I said earlier, where like if you went second, you didn't have your buff, or if you went first, no, yeah, if you went second, you didn't have your buffs up. You know, and there's so many times I'm playing like a Tau player, and I'm like, okay, I'm going into my psychic phase, and their eyes just glass over, and they're like on their phone or whatever, because like what else are they gonna do for a few, you know, that the few minutes where you're just shouting stuff at them, and they're like, okay.
What I miss about it is the flavor it gave Psychic Armies. Now, I wish they had done something where it was more interactive
Mm-hmm.
with the other player rather than it just being one player's vomit buffs or mortal wounds out phase
or kills themselves.
or kill themselves. Yeah. But I wish they had kept the flavor for those Psychic Armies like Thousand Sons, Eldar, and Grey Knights who relied a lot on psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Eldar still have that same problem where if they don't go first, they don't have their buffs up. Like Fortune is still a thing, Guide is a thing, but instead of doing it in the Psychic phase, they're in the Command phase now. So, and there's no way for your opponent to stop them.
Yeah. Well, those are individual buffs like cast on units, similar to how like Sanctuary, right, was
Yep.
a power on a character, and they could cast it on a unit. Now Sanctuary is -1 to be hit at all times if you're Voldus or being led by Voldus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know.
I get it. I get
I
the
don't
people
miss
who
it for
don't
the
miss
speed.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel that, but
Yeah.
I don't miss the interactivity of it, where having where your opponent doesn't do anything. But I do miss the flavor it added to certain armies. But if they could
That's fair.
restore that without the psychic phase, cool. More
That's
power to them.
That's fair. Speaking, we did touch very briefly on purgation squads. Do you see a world where we were living in the land of purgation squads again,
I'm
or
so close to putting purgation squads in my list because of um the flamers and the plunging fire with them. Um, because it's kind of funny because you can get plunging fire a lot easier with purgation squads when they can shoot on a line of sight. If you didn't think about
yeah,
that,
yeah, no, it's true. Like that's one of the
but
wombo combos I was originally thinking of. I'm like, wow, plunging fire with purgation squads, flamers are real good right now. But then they made them almost 200 points for a 5-man, and
they're still they're not overcosted. I would say. I think that the Terminators and how I'm playing with them. If I'm taking only 2 Libbies, I'm considering taking a squad 100%. Like I think I would take them with Stern. Like take Stern and 1 Purgation squad instead of a Terminator squad, and then that Libby would become something else.
that's an interesting idea.
Because the damage has to come from somewhere. So if I'm dropping a Libby, it has to be damage.
Yeah, right.
That's just the way it is. And Purgations are probably the next best damage dealer. Paladins are good, but the Purgations being able to shoot down a line of sight is a really big deal.
And with our stuff being so expensive, being able to shoot from out of line of sight keeps you safe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So That's good. I like it. I like purgation squads. I think that if they went down any more points, like if they were closer to the strike squad, you would see lots of them. I think.
Matt Perry agrees with you. He says that he misses the psychic phase because it made him feel like psychic space paladins, and now he doesn't. So,
Yep.
yeah. All right. It's been almost 2 hours. I do want to bring up one more thing though. Just one last thing.
Sounds good.
The psychic keyword. Why? It is legitimately just a debuff. There are some things that key off of it, like the Radiant Strike power, the Brotherhood Captain's special ability where all psychic weapons get sustained hits 1. But then, like, you go into Thousand Suns, and like you said, it's unlikely they'll use it, but they can potentially make it make all your weapons hazardous. They, into Black Templar, they can have just 4 up to wound all psychers.
Only melee, but yeah.
Yeah, in melee, but yeah, not all the time. That would be wild, but yeah.
They have a 4-up embalm versus all psychic attacks.
Yeah. So, like, how do you feel about the psychic keyword? It feels like they were starting to build that puzzle and then they just stopped building the puzzle.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. It's an incomplete thought.
Yeah.
100%.
Like they had the Lego set and they opened up and they only opened one of the 2 bags.
Like they got the stock but no palms for the top of the palm tree.
Yeah. It's just a stick. It's just a stick.
Yeah, it's just a stick. Yeah, there's just not enough interaction with it yet, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're missing, I don't know. How many factions are there? Like 30 something, and they're supposed to have like several detachments. Essentially 2/3 of the game is still unknown.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of those are going to be like niche detachments, but still, they're going to be. They might increase that. Who knows?
Yeah, that's fair.
I doubt it, but we'll see.
I mean, you're right. Now that you mention it, it's pretty obvious. Like they could have a Wardmaker's Brotherhood. Hopefully that doesn't lock out Voldus or lock Voldus to it, but like that is like, all right, all psychic weapons get this other buff. Now they all have lethal hits as well or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Throw in whatever buff you want. Anti-demon 4+. That'd be absolutely insane for like demons would just go away as a faction at that point. Yeah, demons are the best army in the game right now, are they?
How much feel bad would that be? Taking demons to a GT and then hitting a damn Grey Knight player who takes the anti-demon detachment.
Game 1, yeah.
Game 1. What a feel bad, huh?
It'd be pretty funny. So the NIDS index, it had some things where you got to choose based on each game. You could choose like your hive adaptation. Do you want to see more stuff like that? I'm not even speaking just specifically Grey Knights, but like I love the idea where you can change stuff out as you go from like game to game to game. Not big things, but like little things.
Because the only thing I can think of that would compete with Teleportarum is tides. I think Grey Knights will get a tide detachment where they can pick a tide just like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's coming, personally. But absolutely I want to see that because what it does is like you see that all over the place right now. Combat doctrines, the synaptic nexus, for the NIDS. It adds flexibility to an army and unlocks data slates, but it makes it so that you can plan for it. You know what I mean? It's just not an all the time thing.
Yeah.
Great. This whole army advances charges in my face. I have to go first to get some damage done, or I'm just going to get overwhelmed. It's not like that. It's a specific tool like the assault doctrine for the Gladius Strike Force. I know that they can do it once per turn, and one squad maybe can do it if I let them with the adaptive stratagem. So I would like to see more of that because it allows for a general to really flex his tactical brain. But then also as a defensive, defending against that, I know that army wide this can only happen once, and so once it does happen, I can make a different game plan accordingly afterwards. And so yeah, I really do enjoy those abilities, and I think that they're ultimately good for the game.
I agree. I love the fact that there are some more options that for things like that you can do. Like you can change your game plan, or at least have it in the back of your mind, right? Hopefully, if we do get a tides, again, it won't be like, oh, just tide of convergence. That's the only one worth a shit.
Yeah, I think it'll be like tactical doctrines where
Yeah.
they're all worth it, but I don't think that they're gonna
Yeah.
go back to what they were, where it's gonna be like add 6 inches of range and stuff. I think it is gonna be like um advance and charge if you have deep strike, or
Mhm.
you know,
That's another thing. Like only having one data slate that has advance and charge, but like we have automatic like 6-inch advance and stuff. It's felt like again, just something was lost.
right.
You know?
Yeah, I think like you'd have to limit it maybe like you would teleporm. Like you have to pick 3 and then they can do it,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
2 or
yeah. Yeah.
whatever. I don't think you can give Grey Knights army wide advance and charge.
With a 6-inch automatic advance, no.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah, I
that
just
would be a little crazy.
that's what I yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That would be crazy. I just think of like in my Death Watch, right? My Watchmaster, I except for the fact that I only have one Watchmaster model, like I kind of want to bring 2 and put them in both of my Proteus kill teams because they let that in. Not only do they bring a Vect each, but they allow the unit they're leading to advance and shoot and charge and fall back and shoot and charge all game.
Right.
That is a wildly good combination of things. Like a Vect and that means that my Terminators can advance and fire their Cyclone missile launchers. They can do all kinds of wacky stuff, and then they can still charge your ass. You know,
Right.
like,
Right.
it
Well,
makes those units a lot more powerful.
just to clarify that the detachment ability for Grey Knights is the 6-inch advance, and that
Right. Yes.
the up and down is the Grey Knight army rule. So
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
they're still going to be able to do the army rule. That's why I'm saying that you still would need to limit the advance and charge, because I
Hmm.
think the amount of games you could play with that, not great.
Yeah.
Am I going to bring it up, or am I going to advance and charge? What are you going to do, huh? How are you going to move?
The old tricksy, like, yes, I can do this. That doesn't mean I
Right.
will, but I can.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe the new detachments are going to be like, I've got Teleport Strike Force, I've got Tide of Convergence, I've got Tide of Shadows, and I've got Tide of whatever. Maybe that is that's the route they go instead of the Brotherhoods.
That's true. Yeah. That's an interesting idea.
So, I mean, I've been thinking about that since you mentioned it. So,
Glad to get
flex
the
the Grey
old
Knight brain.
brain juice going.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give everybody one last moment to ask you some questions. Do you want to plug what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you guys want to check me out, I do have a Patreon. It's Advanced Warfare 40k .com is our website, and our Patreon is patreon.com. So that's AW40K. We do a podcast. It's a competitive podcast every week. We answer questions from patrons there, if you want to support the podcast. And then we also offer individual coaching as well, for those who want to up their game, or for people who just don't have enough time to get enough practice in before tournaments but still want to do well. But again, it is competitive focused, less on the casual side. So there's no indistinction there. We're not
Yeah.
helping you do better at your narrative events. That's not where my brain power goes, unfortunately. But but yeah, I mean, we're a great tool, but ultimately, we just love this hobby and want to see it succeed. And um, yeah, we just all about it, and we're all with sportsmanship first too. But an interesting thing, my cat has been doing something weird. She brings me models from my Warhammer room, which is in the basement. I don't know where she's grabbing them from yet. I'm going to find it. But she found a model I haven't used in at least 10 years. I don't know if you can see this,
Is that
but
a
this is
metal granite?
This is
No.
a metal strike missing his halberd. I have no idea where she found this, but I thought it
Wow.
was interesting because I haven't played or used a metal strike, I think, since third ed or whenever they
I
first came out.
I,
So
I do own one pewter Grey Knight Terminator. It's not the old weird Terminator, you know, the
yeah,
like
I know you're talking about
the
the bug
uh
eye.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the newer style with the like pointed knight style helmet. Um but I
But it's
got it
one
in a
solid brick, right?
yeah, and I got it in a box of stuff. A friend of mine gave me a bunch of minis that he wasn't using anymore for Dungeons and Dragons, and there are like hundreds of minis, and I'm just going through them, and I'm like, wait a minute, like that's a Chaos Space Marine, that's a Grey Knight Terminator, and they're just like onesie twosies, but I thought that was pretty funny. So I have some pewter Grey Knights, or a pewter Grey Knight. No, that's not true. I have two, because I do have the original Crow as well.
Oh, yeah,
So,
he's definitely pewter.
yeah.
I really like the new Crow model.
The new
It's
Crow
really
model's
cool
really good. Yeah.
It's really cool.
I've seen two different painting tutorials now, videos where or like Instagram posts or something. Anyway, they're painting the Crow model and they'll even make a comment like, I didn't even notice there were faces in the flames of the blade until I was painting this. That's how detailed and like that blade is. Like it's not even obvious.
Love it.
If you just prime it, you can't tell that that's there.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's cool, but go ahead.
oh,
Do your closing thoughts.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna close this out. It's been just about 2 hours. Thank you so much, Ben. I actually have to make a confession. For most of this podcast, I had your name misspelled in the title, so I'm gonna fix that.
I'm not gonna lie, you're not the first. It's not
No,
a big deal.
I can't imagine that I am. Like my last name is Redu. Can't imagine how many times people mishear or like spell that. But the thing is, I should know better because like I'm friends with you on Facebook. I can look up your name anytime.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's okay, man.
but thanks for swinging by, man. Thank you for getting on the show. I know we talked about this for a little while, and we finally made it actually happen. You're one of the most competitive guys I know that are actively playing with their Grey Knights right now. A lot of them kind of ditched Grey Knights to go play things like Eldari because they actually can win tournaments or GSC and stuff. So thank you so much, and it's awesome to hear your thought process on this stuff because you know you've been playing for so long. You approach things very differently than I do. I'm like a casual competitive player, and you're like,
Hey, that's
and
still
you
a
are
thing.
a competitive player. So
I mean, the only difference is probably I go to more tournaments. I would say that
yeah,
I would garner the fact that you would still enjoy winning. That
yes,
would
no,
be
that's true. Yeah,
so. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
yeah,
I really do like talking Grey Knights. I think they're very complex, and they're just an absolute blast to talk about. You know, they're not boring. Like GSC after the nerf, they're super boring. They're like, do I come back or do I not? Well, no. But
yeah. That's.
thanks again,
I
man.
still need to go into GSC for 10th. I want to see what they're all about. But
They buff themselves, they shoot you, they ignore cover, and then when you kill them, they
they
may
come
or may not
back.
respawn.
Yeah. Oh, now they may or may not. It used to just be they
Correct.
came back. Yeah. All right. Well,
On turn,
Oh
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
We're not gonna get into GSC. That was just gonna explain GSC, but it's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, got it. Yeah. See, guys. This is what he'll do if he coaches you too. He'll answer all of your questions way beyond when you're like way beyond the frame of the actual conversation. So. Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Thank you for everybody who asked questions. And don't forget to call your mother.